Hello everyone. This explainer is based on a chapter from the book Maza Madhume Maze Niyantran. Now for more details you can always visit www.schoolofdiabetes.in.
All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're actually going to go on this incredible journey. A journey through time, really. We're going to trace the entire history of diabetes. Think about it, from this ancient mystery that had doctors completely stumped for thousands of years, all the way to the cutting-edge science that's defining its future right now. It's really a story of sharp observation, amazing breakthroughs, and just pure scientific grit. So, here's what we've got on tap. We'll start way back in ancient times. Then we'll jump into a century of amazing scientific discoveries. After that, we'll talk about insulin, a total revolution. Then we'll look at the modern trials that really wrote the rulebook for treatment. And finally, we'll take a peek into the future of diabetes science.
All right, let's kick things off thousands of years in the past. Back then, diabetes was, well, it was this terrifying, completely unexplained thing. It was only known by its really strange and, sadly, often fatal symptoms.
You know, for centuries, all anyone could really do is just watch. It's fascinating. If you go all the way back to 1552 BC, ancient Egyptians wrote about a condition where people just had to urinate a lot. Fast forward to 1000 BC, and the Indian physician Sushruta noticed something really specific. Ants were attracted to the urine of certain people. How observant is that? Then, the Greek physicians gave this really graphic description, calling it the melting down of flesh and limbs into urine. This all led to this kind of bizarre job of water tasters, who would literally taste urine to see if it was sweet. It wasn't until 1675 that Dr. Thomas Willis finally put a name to it, diabetes mellitus, which basically means honeyed siphon.
Okay, let's jump forward in time. After thousands of years of just observing, the age of real science kicks in. And this is where researchers finally start to piece together the puzzle of what's actually happening inside the body.
And this is where the detective work really gets good. See how the clues just start lining up? In 1776, Dr. Matthew Dobson finally proved scientifically that the sweetness in the urine was actual sugar. Then, almost 100 years later, Paul Langerhans finds these unique little cell clusters in the pancreas. But the big aha moment? That came in 1889. Oskar Minkowski does this experiment where he removes a dog's pancreas and boom, the dog instantly gets diabetes. That was it. The connection was made, the pancreas was the key.
This leads us to a really pivotal figure, Dr. Elliot Joslin. He's the one who established that diabetes wasn't contagious, but more importantly, he championed a philosophy that is still to this day the foundation of diabetes care. The quote you see in Marathi translates to, "Knowledge of diabetes is the right cure for diabetes." He just knew, way back then, that the single most powerful tool was empowering the patient with information. That was the real treatment.
Okay, now we've reached it, the single biggest turning point in this entire story. The one discovery that would completely change the game, transforming diabetes from what was basically a death sentence into a condition that people could actually live with. We're talking, of course, about insulin.
And just look at how fast things started moving after that. In 1921, Banting and Best finally isolate insulin. Just 1 year later, Eli Lilly starts mass-producing it from animal pancreas. And just like that, for the very first time, a diabetes diagnosis wasn't a death sentence. It was incredible. And that just opened the floodgates. By 1942, we have the first pills. By 1959, scientists figure out the crucial difference between type 1 and type 2. And then in 1982, another giant leap. We start making synthetic human insulin in labs. No animals needed.
So it's really important to get this distinction right. With type 1, the body just doesn't produce any insulin at all, period. So taking insulin isn't just a treatment, it's essential for survival. With type 2, it's a bit different. The body makes insulin, but it doesn't use it properly. That's why, especially early on, it can often be managed with things like tablets and lifestyle changes.
And what's really amazing is that none of this progress happened in a bubble. I mean, the discovery of insulin itself won a Nobel Prize, of course, but that breakthrough was only possible because it stood on the shoulders of decades of research from dozens of other Nobel winners, scientists who were studying immunity, digestion, cell chemistry, hormones. All of it was connected.
All right, so we've got the what, we've got insulin, we've got medications, but the next huge question was the how, right? How do you actually use these tools to stop the really devastating long-term complications? And that question, well, that's what kicks off the modern era of these massive, landmark clinical trials.
First up, we have the DCDT. This was an absolute game changer for type 1 diabetes.
published back in 1995. And the goal was, on the surface, pretty simple, but the implications were huge. They wanted to prove, once and for all, if keeping blood sugar super tight, what we call intensive control, could actually stop all that long-term damage.
And the results? They were absolutely staggering. They found that this intensive control slashed the risk of diabetic eye disease, a leading cause of blindness, by 76%. Let that sink in. 76%. This wasn't just a minor improvement, it was a total revolution in how we prevent complications. And it didn't stop with the eyes. The exact same strategy, that tight control, cut the risk of kidney disease by 57%. So for the very first time, we had solid, undeniable proof that being proactive, that keeping blood sugar in check could save not just your life, but your organs too. Okay, but what about type 2? That's where the next huge study, the UKPDS, comes into the picture. This thing was massive. It followed over 5,000 people with newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes for 10 years. The goal was to write the modern rulebook for how to treat it, looking at both blood sugar and blood pressure. And here's what's so powerful about their findings. The UKPDS proved that even small changes make a huge difference. For every single 1% drop in your HbA1c, that long-term sugar measurement, the risk of major problems just plummeted. We're talking a 37% drop in kidney disease, a 21% drop in deaths from any cause, and a 14% drop in heart attacks. That's incredible impact from just a 1-point change.
Of course, science is never done. It's always about refining what we know. So later trials like Accord and Advance added a really important detail. While tight control is good, pushing it too hard in older adults could actually be risky, so it's a balance. And other studies helped us nail down the best way to diagnose diabetes. They proved that multiple injections work well for type 2 and showed why newer, long-acting insulins are such a big deal.
So, what a journey, right? We've gone from ancient guesswork to modern, evidence-based medicine. But the story's not over, so what's next? Well, let's look to the future, to the horizon, and talk about the amazing innovations that are poised to completely change what it means to live with diabetes.
And the future is, well, it's incredibly exciting. We're talking about personalized medicine that can tailor treatments right down to your DNA. We're talking about glucose monitors that are way smarter and less invasive. We're talking about things like the artificial pancreas that can basically automate insulin delivery. And beyond just managing the disease, scientists are working on gene therapy and stem cells, the stuff that holds the ultimate promise, a potential cure.
So this all leaves us with one final, pretty powerful question to think about. I mean, look at what's happened. In about a century, science took a fatal disease and made it manageable. Now, with all this progress on the horizon, the real question doesn't seem to be if we'll make the next huge leap forward, but when. So, are we on the verge of a world that's finally free from the burden of diabetes? It's an amazing thought, isn't it?